Now, the Three Martini Lunch with Greg Corombos and Jim Garrity.
And welcome, everyone, to the Monday edition of the Three Martini Lunch. Along with Jim Garrity of National Review, I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. We have bad, good, and crazy martinis for conservatives in just a moment. But first, we have some breaking news. Our decision desk is ready to confirm that with all of the precincts reporting out of Chicago, and even with the dead vote factored in, it appears that the Chicago Bears have, in fact, defeated the New York Jets by a score of 24-10. We are going to hear from both sides of this epic fight that spent hundreds of millions of dollars and got really nasty here in the final weeks. First of all, let's go out to Bears headquarters at Hallis Hall. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It is a great day. The Bears have won. You know, a few minutes ago, I received a call from Jim Garrity and the Jets. No. Jim could not have been more gracious. He congratulated us on our victory, and we sincerely pledged to work together wherever possible to make life better for Bears fans and Jets fans everywhere. Jim is my good friend. The campaign has ended, and now the work begins together. We must put bitter divisions in the past and be more committed than ever to our cause of restoring mourning in America by winning another Super Bowl at some point. It's not going to happen based on how either team played yesterday. But as we do that, I want to thank every single person who cheered for the Bears, from the most dedicated Bears fans to all those who studied this contest carefully and chose to commit themselves to our cause. To everyone who called their neighbors and knocked on doors to convince their communities to cheer for the Bears, I thank you. Tonight, you chose hope over fear. Tonight, you rejected those who hate animals. Tonight, you rejected those who hate deep dish. Tonight, you rejected the despicable, divisive politics of special interest groups like Americans United Against Chicago. As I've said many times, this was never just about the Bears. It's about all of us. And hopefully this win will lift all of us in the weeks and months to come. Thank you, and may God bless all of you, and may God bless the United States of America. Jim, let's go now to the other side. And Jim, I noticed, first of all, that you're wearing a gray hoodie today.
Yeah, I got it from a particular coach who has a big winning record, great success, many Super Bowl rings. And I just want to emulate his spirit when it comes to a disappointing defeat. We didn't get it done today. Just didn't get it done. Well, we're on to Miami. Play Miami next week. Focus on that. Just didn't get it done on offense. Didn't get it done on defense. Didn't get it done on special teams. We're on to Miami.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you very much for a heartfelt concession. And good luck. Good luck to the Bears, who are on to Buffalo next week, because for some reason the Bears have a whole month of playing the AFC East. And the two games we actually could have really helped you, we couldn't get anything done against the Patriots or the Dolphins. But maybe we can help you make sure that the Bills stay in the cellar a little bit. All right, on to our actual martinis today, and certainly an emotional shift here as we begin with our bad martini, because the news that dominated the weekend, naturally, was the horrific shooting at the Tree of Life Synagogue in the Squirrel Hill section of Pittsburgh. A self-proclaimed neo-Nazi said on what is apparently an absolutely despicable social media site known as Gab that he'd had enough, that all the Jews must die, and that he's going in, and that he went into a bris on Saturday morning, killed 11 people, a wide range of ages, all the way up to 97 years old, injured a number of people as well, including a number of police officers. And, of course, Jim, the recriminations politically in all directions are happening, even though this guy hated Trump. It's Trump's rhetoric, according to the left, that caused this. If you talk to the right, it's because the Democrats never denounced Louis Farrakhan. The gun debate, of course, is back into this instantaneously. The lead story here, though, of course, is that hate was perpetrated on a massive scale, the largest mass murder of Jews, I believe, in American history. And this evil person who's responsible for it is the person responsible for it. And while there's always going to be a lot of discussion about what could have potentially motivated him, especially when we're less than 2 weeks from a major election, it's disgusting how everybody's taken their eye off the real ball here.
Yeah, I was saying to a friend this weekend, Greg, that I really wish we could get no more than one really horrific hate crime dominating the headlines per week. That doesn't seem like too much to ask, but it comes right on the heels of the bomber who was caught in Florida. You kind of breathe easy, and then something just as abominable as this happens in Pittsburgh. And it's deeply depressing, Greg, because it's not just the instant finger pointing and political recriminations. As many have noted that this guy apparently hated Trump because he thought Trump was a tool of the Jews, and the Florida bomb sender was very, very pro-Trump, but this guy was a few fries short of a Happy Meal himself. What we have in this country is a culture in which people, thankfully not many of them, but enough of them to do damage, to really disrupt our lives, get really socially isolated. They don't really have family. They don't really have friends. They don't really have anybody who could check on them and kind of say, hey buddy, you're going off the deep end here. No, it's not Jews that are out controlling the world and trying to mess with your life. It's not Nancy Pelosi is off in San Francisco and stuff like that. If you're living in your van down in Florida, you got to look at your own life, and you got to look at what you've done. And if you want to make your life better, you can do it. But it ain't George Soros who's keeping you in that van down by the river, wherever he was living. And we don't have a way of finding these people until it's too late, it seems. And it's kind of horrifying to see that the Florida bomber was putting all kinds of threats on Twitter, but nobody ever seemed to pick up on this. It never really got any reaction. He couldn't even get his account suspended, which looks really ridiculous in light of the people who have had their accounts suspended. Same thing with this guy who was on Gab. I mean, apparently you're just out and out open about how much he believed that Jews were the root of all evil. And Greg, you find yourself, how do you go to a bris? My sons had brisses, right? I mean, how do you go to a gathering in a temple and you see a bunch of septuagenarians and octogenarians? How do you look at that and say, oh, there's the menace? There's what I got to stop. That's what's really dangerous in this life. That's not what's dangerous in America. That's what's best about America. Families coming together for a ceremony like that. It really is just absolutely heartbreaking and maddening. And I hear the comments about, well, what if they'd had a security guard at the temple? Look, the JCCs around here and the temples, they all have security for high holy days and for events like that. It is an absolute abominable shame that they need it in this country. We kind of have to look carefully at this. I don't think necessarily the argument of it should be turned towards gun control. I don't think that when you say, oh, if they had a security guard, well, the guy did shoot 4 cops. I mean, this was not a guy who was necessarily going to be deterred by a good guy with a gun to stop them from doing this. We clearly have people in this country who are marinating in this, and unfortunately, it looks like a good chunk of this is occurring online. They don't have meetings anymore. You could always go to the Klan meeting, and you could always go to the meeting of the hate group, and send out undercover agents and keep track of them. Now, when it's online, there's no physical location to find the people, and they just kind of fester in this until one day they decide that they're going to take some sort of terrible action, and they conclude this insane and infuriating and outrageous and just utterly despicable act occurs. And so we're left asking this question way too many times. Why do so many people end up getting sucked into that vortex of hatred and paranoia and all that? In today's Jolt, I wrote a great deal saying, look, for all these people out there who are convinced that it's the Jews who are controlling it, or it's the Soros and the Democrats who are controlling it. Anytime, the incel guy who said women were all behind this, and for that matter, the baseball shooter who tried to shoot up the Republicans practicing baseball because he thought that Trump and the Republicans were the Taliban and all that stuff. Look, nobody's out to get you because you're not important enough, average Joe. They don't get together at Davos and talk about you. And I think that's what really frightens people. It's like, no, actually, the problems in your life are mostly your own damn fault. Yes, maybe, things could have gone better for you. Maybe somebody really did, treat you badly, or there really have been bad breaks. But no, there is no vast conspiracy out to get you. And here's the good news. You can fix your own life that way, but you have to take responsibility. And that's terrifying to a lot of people, Greg. And I think the ultimate outcome of this kind of narcissism this kind of belief that the only way our lives could have turned out as badly as they have is if they were out to get us, as they flail around in search of them and find some way to go out in the blaze of glory. And it's just Greg, Saturday was a day we really didn't feel like America.
Let's move on to our good martini now. And let's go to early voting. Washington Post, surprise, surprise, thinks that young people are really going to show up and vote this year. They say throughout the country, there are signs that young Americans are taking an unusual level of interest in this year's midterms, prodded by Democratic groups and nonprofit organizations that have spent millions urging them to see state and congressional elections as outlets to express their views. The share of 18 to 29-year-old voters who say they will definitely vote has jumped from 26% in the run-up to the last midterm election in 2014 to 40% this fall, according to a new poll obtained from the Institute of Politics at Harvard University's Kennedy School of Government. One driving factor, widespread support for government intervention to curb gun violence and reduce college debt and health care costs. So they say they're going to vote, but are they going to vote? John Bresnahan from Politico posts this from the Florida Playbook just this morning. Remember all that talk of how the young people will win and come out in force in Florida, especially after the Parkland massacre? So far, it's not happening. Voters between the ages of 18 and 29 are 17% of the registered voters in Florida, but have only cast 5% of the ballots so far. They tend to vote more Democratic. Meanwhile, voters 65 and older are 18.4% of the electorate, but have cast 51% of the ballots so far. And as of right now, 43% of early ballots in Florida cast by Republicans, 40% by Democrats. Obviously, Jim, they've got plenty of time to do this. Early voting continues to some extent here over the next several days in a lot of these states, and they can certainly show up on Election Day. But so far, the numbers are not materializing, and big shock.
Yeah, you can argue about whether this qualifies as a good martini or as just merely an amusing martini.
Right.
It seems like every cycle we go through this over and over again. And the first thing is that I don't put a lot of stock into poll questions that ask people, are you going to vote this year? Because people always know the answer should be yes. They know that if they don't vote, they come across as lazy. They come across as unengaged. They know there's a possibility that people will think less of them if they say, yeah, I'm not going to vote this year. So they say they're going to vote. And lo and behold, voter turnout turns to be much lower. The percentage of voters who turn out turns out to be much lower than the percentage of people who told the pollster, yes, I'm definitely going to vote this year. It's just the way people are. We should not, it's baked into the cake whether you like it or not. The second thing is that when it comes to early voting, each year the percentage of the vote, of the total overall vote that is the early vote, goes up a few percentage points. I think we're in the neighborhood of 40% now. It should be up to like maybe 42, 43, 44, somewhere in that range is what you'd expect this year if the historical pattern continues. Now, the other thing that's worth noting is that early voting, maybe it's not the sort of thing that young people are going to be interested in. Obviously, early voting is an indicator that you're really engaged because generally, like everybody knows, election day is the first Tuesday in November. Right, Greg? People do know that?
Yes, I hope so.
I asked that because, the old joke, because of high turnout, Republicans vote on Tuesday and Democrats vote on Wednesday. Like, that old joke gets forwarded a million times on email every time. And people look at that and say, oh, my God, voter suppression. Well, look, if a forwarded email can tell you that people in your party are supposed to vote on Wednesday, maybe you weren't all that smart and weren't like the kind of person who should be voting anyway. But all right, let's put that aside. It looks like the people who vote early, you got to look up online or you got to look up when and where you're supposed to vote. When are they doing early voting hours? You got to fill out the form. Some states are very strict about it. Some states are very loose about it. I believe here in Virginia, you need to give a reason, but it's not like they go and check to see if you're actually traveling on Election Day or something like that. But so it's one of those things where maybe you should expect people who are older and have a little more time on their hands, retirees, to be more likely. Good example, you pointed to the numbers in Florida. They also have new numbers in Nevada as of Saturday, so maybe things changed a little bit since then. But as of Saturday, just 12% of early voters are under age 40. So we're not just talking about the age 18 to 30 crowds. Not even the folks in their 30s have voted very much. Half of the early voters are between the ages of 59 and 80 years old. And yes, I believe 1% was above age 99. So God bless those centenarians getting out there and voting in Nevada. Now, the question is this mean that young voters aren't as engaged as they say they are? Or does it mean they're just voting on Election Day? I don't think you can necessarily come to conclusions one way or the other on that. I do think you can say that when you keep hearing, oh, boy, the millennials and the young voters, they're really going to come out and they're going to be decisive for Democrats this year, and this is the year of the young vote. Don't buy into the hype. That so far it hasn't happened, and, all campaigns want their voters to, whether or not you think early voting is a good idea. People on campaigns think it's a good idea because everybody who's already voted early is one less person you have to worry about when it comes to getting out the vote on Election Day.
Jim, two thoughts come to mind with this. First of all, apparently early voting has become the early bird special of elections.
Yes, exactly. When you're having dinner at 4 p.m.
That's exactly right. Darn kids, I don't want them in here anyway. So better deal, shorter lines, and all that. In terms of people voting, and a lot of times, I got to go vote for Obama, or I got to go vote for Trump, and people don't really know what to do with the rest of the ballot, and you got the people with the sample ballot outside, and we've talked about them in years past and so forth. My idea, which I'm sure everybody's going to hate, is that you should have the names for each office in alphabetical order with no party affiliation. So if you want to do your homework, write it down, bring it in, go ahead and vote. But if all you're going to do is just lazily go in there and, I don't know any of these people, but that guy's this party, so I'm going to vote for him. I think that would be the way to add some intelligence and being informed into the system. What do you think?
Greg, just how many people with the last name Aaron do you want to elect? Because that, they just go the first name on the list. Candidates will be changing their name. Aardvark. My name is Jim Aardvark. Oh, your name is fine. My name is Aardvark with 4 A's. How do you like them apples? Okay. Eventually, somebody's name is just going to be A, right? Because that's the. In case you're wondering, oh, come on, Jim, people don't vote that way. Yes, they do.
Yes, they
Having
do.
your name first on the ballot is probably, most people say it's worth 1 or 2 percentage points. So let's hear it for being a constitutional republic and, commonly thought of as a democracy. Yay.
Only our crazy martini remains, Jim. And boy, is it a doozy. So, Jim, whether you're talking about Pittsburgh, whether you're talking about the mail bomber, whether you're talking about people confronting politicians in restaurants and screaming at them, sending them ricin in the mail, our current environment is rather toxic. And so some people are saying, you know what? We've got these echo chambers in social media, and that's the problem. Well, thankfully, Twitter may be ready to solve the problem entirely. USA Today, Twitter may be saying goodbye to the like button. The social network has been looking at getting rid of the heart-shaped button as a way to improve debate on the platform, according to Twitter's CEO and co-founder Jack Dorsey. A company co-founder, Dorsey last week said at a Twitter event that the network would be getting rid of the like button soon, according to the British daily The Telegraph. Twitter did not offer a definitive statement Monday on the future of the feature, which replaced the star-shaped favorite button 3 years ago. As they said in their tweet today, as we've been saying for a while, we are rethinking everything about the service to ensure we are incentivizing healthy conversation that includes the like button. We are in the early stages of the work and have no plans to share right now. And when USA Today posted this, that tweet had 182 likes. Jim, basically the idea here is that if you don't have a like count, it's going to make people less inclined to like it, and really ugly ideas will be less likely to go viral. So what do you think of Twitter's efforts, or at least its consideration, of solving our entire problem of toxic politics and toxic ideology by getting rid of the like button?
Greg, great news. When the Jets-Bears game became really boring this weekend because of the Jets' pathetic performance, I decided to do something more useful, and I bought a time machine and went into the future to buy a history book to see how things turned out for us. And I have great news. It turns out that in late 2018, just a couple of weeks or months from now, the world situation is going to change dramatically. Terrorism, crime, hatred, mass shootings, they're all going to go down dramatically to almost non-existence. All of our political debates are going to become civil real soon, Greg. Kindness and charity will spread, and Twitter's managers will say, we figured it out. The problem was the like button all along. No, that didn't happen. Because there's this bizarre idea that Twitter is full of hatred and death threats. I mentioned the death threats from the Florida bomber earlier. Clearly the like button's the problem. No one was complaining about the like button. Mickey White says it's frustrating when people like instead of retweet. That is the strongest opinion you're getting about the like button across all of Twitter, right? The second thing is, Greg, I'm on Twitter, or at least I was on Twitter a bit more than you were or are. You stay off it, and you seem like a very mentally healthy person because of that. But what was the one thing we kept saying we really wanted up from Twitter more than anything else? An edit button.
Oh, yeah, edit button, yes.
How many times have I know I've sent out a brilliant tweet, hilarious, insightful, everything I wanted to do in 280 words, and for some reason I wrote "te" instead of "the." Darn it! God, and of course, then it goes viral. Then it's spreading. Then it's doing exactly what I wanted it to do, except everyone thinks I'm an idiot who can't spell words correctly. Got a funny GIF, all that good stuff. And the entire world is thinking, oh, that's a good. Oh, God, can't spell, moron. And you can't do it. I can change stuff on Facebook. I could go in and say, oh, I want to tweak that. That didn't turn out right or something like that. All kinds of social media give us the opportunity to edit, except Twitter. And what have people have been claiming? People have been saying, oh, could you give us? They keep saying no. Now, the second thing I'd like from Twitter, maybe a really clear, consistent, written out standard about what gets you banned. That would be nice, right? That way people could know exactly what the rules are and not any of this vague, against community standards. Can't get any of that. No, but the like button, boy, they're going to come down on that like a ton of bricks. Woo! All right, the world is safe. Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Twitter.
Yes, exactly. Don't worry about figuring out who's a danger in your community. Just lose the like button.
I saw this. I think it was from Neon Taster. Don't ask me why these people pick these names on Twitter. But he had the possibility. What would happen if, for 1 week, there was no, you couldn't see how many people retweeted you, and you couldn't see how many people liked you.
A lot of people's minds would go crazy.
Right? You wouldn't get that instant affirmation of, look at all these retweets. So many people like this. People might have to interact with each other. Maybe it'd be good, maybe it'd be bad. Maybe you get a whole bunch of FU responses or something like that. Maybe really ugly. Or, maybe something kind of, that's a good point. Maybe instead of, hitting the like button, people would say, hey, good post or good observation or something. It'd be kind of interesting to see how, I think if you want to do a 1 week experiment like that, just to see what happens, I'm fine with that. But the other thing is many people strongly suspect that this isn't designed to change the discourse or anything like that. That all in all, likes don't actually do anything for Twitter. And that they really would prefer, that if you retweet, you have the possibility of expanding the audience. If you reply, it's more interactive. But liking is just pressing a button. So they want to do something that there's probably some sort of financial motivation behind this instead of the really implausible argument that the like button is one of the ways that's fostering division and hatred on Twitter.
The like button is the lowest possible commitment you can make. It's like the argument you were making with the young people in heavy lifting that you should.
Yeah. There you go. What it is, it's like a
Right.
It's an electronic nod.
I don't actually want to get all these notifications since I replied or retweeted, but if I like it, no one's going to bother me.
Even that sense of that was good. Good job. It is the minimum enthusiasm affirmation of someone else. By the way, yes, I've gotten really excited when famous people decide to like something I tweeted.
Everybody needs that bright spot in their day. Absolutely.
There you go.
Jim, it's good to see you smiling today. Now we can get back to our regularly scheduled activities of despising the rest of the NFC North and the AFC East, and we can do so together and of course, get ready for Election Day. So back in the saddle.
No bad blood, Greg. It's all right. We'll get you guys in the Super Bowl. Don't worry.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're both totally going there. Jim, see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, Greg.
Jim Garrity of National Review. I'm Greg Columbus of Radio America. Thanks for being with us today, and be sure to tune in again on Tuesday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.